Hello, everyone. My name is Bohdan. I am project manager at the Gem Factory Arts Center. We're very happy to see you here at the conference, What We Believe in Faith as Social Glue. I will be in charge of timing, in charge of the clock. I'll be telling you where we're going, why we're going there, and I will moderate and attempt to make you feel comfortable, make you feel at home. I think we've been at this for long enough, so I won't take too much more time to introduce things. The conference will be in Ukrainian, but with simultaneous interpreting into English. So then I would like to give the floor now to Bożena Palenska, the director of the Gem Factory Arts Center. Bożena, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Feel like I'm on a stage already. Welcome our partners here.
I would like to welcome our partners who managed to get to Lviv. Good morning. I would like to thank you all for having found the strength and the inspiration to show up on this early on a Saturday morning. The topic we'll be presenting today and that we would like to discuss today seems to us very important, and I'm sure that we all of us together with our speakers will be able to look into this in some depth. Again, I welcome you to this conference entitled What We Believe in, Faith as a Social Glue. Which is part of a larger international theatrical project that's been now going on for 4 years, and that has 7 partners. I would like to announce who they are, and because they're essentially all here today. And these are usually either theatrical festivals or various theaters or centers for contemporary art like us. I would like to welcome the anti-contemporary art from the Czech Republic, from Finland, the Geschäftstheater from Israel, who are only with us online, Sonnenblüte Kulturfestival from Germany, who are a leading partner of this project, who are almost all of them here, as well as the theater from Italy, which is also only with us online, and Teatr Powszechny from Poland, also present here. And us, the Gem Factory Arts Center, the organizers of today's conference. We, at the Gem Factory Arts Center, will only open next May. We're still finishing our premises. So we would like to thank the Center for Urban History, where we are today. They are our sister institution, partner institution, and very reliable, and they're hosting us here today. The conference is not a usual format for us. However, as an art institution, we set ourselves the objective to raise difficult questions and think about them. This conference, like other conferences, is part of this important process. And it matters to us to ask ourselves about the society we live in, about not taking for granted what we're told, try to rethink it critically, view it critically, and in our opinion, that is our contribution to society, to its construction. This conference, this is not a scholarly conference, an academic conference, but we do have star speakers today looking into this topic as scholars, as researchers, who will jointly with us present and help us think about this fairly difficult and simple question of faith and the question of what we believe in today. In addition to the question of what we believe in, we added faith as a social glue, because we were thinking our society, the society we live in, and faith in it is what can unite us or disunite us. Because of faith, people might kill each other, or people might become very close, part of a community, and prepared to perform unbelievable feats and accomplishments. However, I'm hopeful that we'll be able to discuss and find out more, discover more within this conference, a bit more about the project and the idea behind it. I would like to give the floor to André Len from Köln, of Sommerblut. André Len is the man who gathered all 7 institutions, and suggested faith as a topic for research. The topic that became the kind of the cornerstone for this cooperation of these 7 partners.
Will you please say a little bit more?
Yes, thank you, Bożena, and welcome everyone here, not at the Gem Factory, but in Lviv. I'm really happy we're here. I think Lviv and the Ukraine is a great project, a great place to meet for the first time. What we do now, actually, because the project started 1 year ago, but we only met online, and so we are really here. And I like really to use this meeting that we meet also as a company here. We spend the whole day together, and so I like to introduce also really the partners of the whole project, that you know which faces are here, and you can talk to us, we can talk to you, and I just see Pavel and Joanna here from Teatr Powszechny from Warsaw. There is Joanna from the Anti-Festival from Finland. I have to see who's next. There's Michal and Barbora from Divadlo pod Palmovku from Prague. And my colleagues from the Sommerblut Festival in Cologne, Germany. There's Felix in the background. And where's Rolf? Rolf is there. And then we are missing, of course, our partners, you just said it, from Italy and from Israel, from the Teatro dei Venti.
They are online, we can say hello to them.
Yes, and maybe meet them also in the chat room. And the guest lecturer from Tel Aviv, right. So face to face, you said already a lot. It is the Gem Factory, I'm sorry, so it's Bożena and Bogdan, of course. And many others, yes. So it's 7 partners. They started a few years ago to plan this project, and it is first of all, of course,
2018.
In 2018,
our first meeting.
Okay, and a lot of grey hairs later, we finally meet in person. So it's for sure an exchange project in the good sense. So between institutions which are really diverse, very, very different in terms of their art profile, their audience, their way of communication. So it's a knowledge transfer between these 7 partner organizations from Israel till here, till Ukraine. Then it is a research project on the topic of faith and how it influences our lives, our identities, the identities of societies, social groups. And then, of course, it is a project to promote arts and any kind of cultural and artistic actions in the societies. So we started last year with the kickoff, with the exchange of all organizations. Then we had the first conference. We have 3 conferences in the whole project. which are following the whole process. We started actually on the first conference with a question: what is faith? What is belief? Where do we find it? How does it rule our lives? Today, I will not say about the next conference, and then the third conference will actually take place in Warsaw in the next year, be organized by Teatr Powszechny in the end. And then what we also did already, we had an open call to find international artists to propose ideas, artistic, performative, artistic projects connected to the topic of faith. And from, I think, 400 really great, interesting applications and concepts, we selected seven projects. They are all produced in every country. Is one performance is produced, and actually we have one additional project, which will it's a digital performance project that will somehow link all the partners. And so we will have premieres, performances, and guest performances starting from November in Warsaw, and then next spring will be the premieres. And also these performances will tour to the other towns. So here in Lviv, hopefully we will be part of the opening of the Gem Factory. Yes, for sure, it will be possible. So you will see performances from face to face. So I think, yes, that's all I can say. I'm very happy I'm here again. Thank you to Gem Factory, and let's have an interesting, exciting, inspiring day together. Thank you.
Thank you, Andrea. We'll go on with them.
Thank you, Andre. I will continue in Ukrainian. Before I present our first speaker, I would like to focus on several technical aspects. The conference comprises 3 blocks. You will hear presentations by our invited speakers. After this, we will have a panel discussion, and then there'll be a little break, a small lunch break, after which there will be work in small groups. And I would like to point out a few aspects. Presentations will not have Q&A sessions. Only if someone has something very important, clarification question, we will of course allow it. But please make note of your questions and then address them to the speakers during the panel discussion. Likewise, if you have questions for work groups, we have put together 5 questions and 5 groups. And then in the back of the room where Bohdan is, we have questions posted for each group, and we would like you during the coffee breaks or during the lunch breaks to take a look at those questions, acquaint yourself with those questions. You can also add, you can change them, transform them, add more questions to them to be discussed in the groups. Or if the question you are interested in isn't featured in the 5 groups, you can form your own group and your own questions. We have moderators who will eventually process these and present them in the work of those groups. I'd like to also point out that there will be 5 groups. One of them will be definitely Ukrainian speaking, as we have. We intend to make 4 groups English speaking. If it's difficult for you to speak English, we please ask you to put yourself in the Ukrainian language group. However, if it's important for you to participate and discuss one of the other questions, we will figure out the translation issue. We do have assistance. It's just you have to point it out to one of my colleagues. It seems to me that I think that's it as far as technical questions are concerned. I am now ready to switch to presentations. I'm very happy and honored to welcome here Iryna Starovoit, lecturer at the at the Department for Cultural Studies, candidate for linguistic sciences. She researches cultural practices of European modernisms, dynamics of conflict, of cultural memory and overcoming them, sociocultural change, and the creative sector. I think these are very important. These are among the most important topics that Pani Iryna works on. She's also written numerous essays, publications, and anthologies dedicated to these topics, as well as she's also written poetry, poetry collections. Pani Iryno, the floor is yours. Hello, everyone. To those of you who have given up this penultimate summer morning almost to be here and think about faith with us. I'm very grateful to the audience who have come together here, and I'm sure that there's some kind of common community of thought forming here. If you're here for answers, I'm sure it's best for you to go outside and drink coffee. But if you're here for better questions, then you've come to the right place. I would like to first of all point out that I must have been 16. Yes, I was 16 when the Soviet Union was falling apart, and this was the time when I first saw theological texts on my horizon. I first encountered theological texts, and that was the first time to think about the popular culture, the Soviet hits, with questions that seemed to me important at the time. And I remembered that I was reading in '91. For the first time in my life, I was reading Anselm of Canterbury, and I was very inspired with this main idea of his, that fides queres intellectum, that faith seeks understanding. But at the same time, I was listening to Andrei Makarevich, the singer and guitarist leader of Mashina Vremeni, the Time Machine, the Soviet popular band. And there was a very important part of the text that had the words, "And one major unbelief destroys thousands of small beliefs." It's this one complete unbelief that can conquer small faiths. That seemed very unjust to me at the time. And I know that at the time I believed that one great faith comprises thousands of small faiths, small beliefs, and then one great unbelief should not destroy it. But an important aspect that I would like to point out at the start is that kind of the three key words that I added to this topic proposed by Jam Factory aren't simply faith as a social glue, but also the three truths of faith: creation, revelation, and salvation. And it seems that in this circle of people who have to do with theater, I think it'll be very important to talk about what is in our modern understanding creation, revelation, and salvation. Faith is again becoming a way of life, a center for community and overcoming existential fear in various continents and various political circumstances. The spectrum of our fear is broad. We know that we only know what we can lose when we risk losing it. There are two 11s in our secular calendar that have contributed to this. September 11th, or 9/11, 2001, the day of Al-Qaeda's invasions into the United States and the start of the global war with terrorism, and as well as the March 11th, 2020, the start of the coronavirus pandemic. In both cases, the basis of rationality shook, and we saw the laughable helplessness in the face of what we don't know and what we don't understand. Religious figures, they talk on political and pandemic issues. They take on or refuse to take on public responsibility, participate in public debate. It's not just Eastern and Western Christianity, but also Islam, Judaism, Buddhism, Hinduism have sent clear messages in these past 2 decades, and they've become important agents in their societies. The political, social, and cultural significance of faith has grown. It's not just about it's not just about paying back. It's about the reclaiming the potential of faith. As Jürgen Habermas, a completely secular thinker, expressed, only what points to beyond the limits of human world can save the world and humanity itself. While we look at purely human interest, we cannot differentiate, we cannot find the hidden danger of the Anthropocene. At the same time, when we look at faith in the modern world, it's more about lack than about excess. There is less faith than unbelief. There's less optimism than pessimism. Most people would like to live in a world where they could realize themselves, self-actualize, self-express themselves, travel freely, pursue happiness and find happiness, implement their goals. But most people do not live in that world. Some of us try to believe that that better world is possible. The image of a better world rests on a priori values. These are values that have to do not with reasons, but with goals, with ends. The question of common faith is central to in the mirror of history of ideas. When Peter Sloterdijk was thinking about what we do with metaphysics, or rather with the empty space that it leaves behind in the Western mind, when the source that provided energy and form and direction to human aspiration provided, he wrote 1,000 pages, his 1,000-page critique of cynical reason. This is not an abstract work. More, it is a confessional philosophy. It talks about how in the generation of the 60 years in Europe, faith mutated into disbelief, and optimism mutated into melancholia. He called his generation brilliant in diagnosing social disease and cultural disease and helpless in treating them. This is at the root of modern cynicism, religious, military, sexual, or woe from wit. Almost 40 years ago, Sloterdijk called the nuclear bomb no worse than surrounding reality, and no more threatening than humanity in general. For all these 4 decades, he is arguing with himself and others about the courage of embodied faith. After a year and a half of enforced isolation and communication with fragments of human bodies in Skype or Zoom, even without a theological education, it doesn't take a theological education for us to understand what perichoresis means, from the Greek perfect coexistence. We value the opportunity to be together, a living community and participation. This is what Habermas said in his famous speech when he was given the Prize of Peace in Frankfurt in 2001 on knowledge and faith. The secularization hypothesis has lost its explanatory potential. Faith, then, is not knowledge, or knowledge is not faith. They're mutually dependent on each other, and they're inextricably linked with the mission to provide perspectives into the future. The solution of the democratic majority will always depend, decisions of democratic majority will always depend on the faith and ethical beliefs of real citizens. The understanding of the fact that we're living in an age of post-truth and disbelief is a wake-up call for the third millennium. The common and objective standards for differentiating truth from not truth have been eroded, not only at the everyday level, but also at the highest level of government and power, even in the third power in the media. Whereas in the last century, the control of social moods was in censorship or dosing public information. Now it's the opposite. There's tons of information. We feel overfed, and even feel a white noise of news. There's no doubt that the social networks have promoted this idea, and also created the situation of information bubbles. Every person can select their own collection of facts and beliefs, and the algorithms will only support them in that. Our resignation of truth does not encompass, it's interesting that it does not encompass the everyday experience. When we go to the doctor, we still want to hear the true diagnosis. When we buy food, we still try to find out that it's organic and fresh. In crossing the street, we do not doubt that the green light allows us to move, whereas the red light quite seriously tells us to stop. When a crime has occurred, we want it to be investigated and we want evil to be punished. The darkness of post-truth has to do with those parts of life where truth is not tangible. It's policy and ethics, including professional ethics. When serial untruth enters into this territory with faked diplomas, with imitation of social activity, with abuse of social and professional stature, with destruction of the environment, the situation is very sad. So largely, we're living a life where truth drops out. And that's when faith drops out. And it drops out where trust disappears, where we start constantly questioning and doubting. These doubts have to do, first of all, about the reliability of our sources and institutions. Secondly, our words for the description of reality or our tools for investigation and research can suddenly be unreliable. This is why Kratel only pointed to the thing that he was talking about. Unfortunately, not all the facts in the world are such that we can point to them with our fingers. In various areas of thinking, we use abstract categories, general statements, probabilities, and denial. What is available to us is the search for truth. After the totalitarian years, after the ideological dogma and the Soviet Pravda newspaper, we're afraid of the word truth itself because we know that there are different perspectives, different experiences, and different truths. This ought not make us complete relativists. We must be aware that the truth is not dogma, and that the truth cannot be imposed, and that the modern times pose new questions, and that we have to be humble to seek truth and refuse to state that we own the truth. Everyone has the right to not know or have nothing to say. If we stuck to this principle more frequently, there would be less lies and fakes. But doubt, when people no longer have the courage to seek what they can believe in, because such a search helps us understand faith as a process, as a continued effort, the personal road of accomplishment and loss, and a path for self-betterment. Revelation of truth is not spectacle. It is an impulse for change because you have found the truth. Believers have the passion to do something with the truth they have understood. Today, we also have to push our way through the noise of untruth. And there's a tension between hard truth and cruel truth. People don't usually want the whole truth, especially the whole truth about themselves, because it is unpleasant, it makes us look imperfect, it reminds us of the chances we failed to use, the degradation, our death. When, in a recent interview, I was asked about the job of the generation, the objective of the generation, it seemed I said then that the point of my generation, I think, where the generation of all or nothing isn't replaced with a generation of it's all for nothing. And so the biggest discussions I had with my students were probably really discussions about nihilism. What is truth? So what can I believe? It's not just a constant question of philosophers. It's also the tired, skeptical remark of Pontius Pilate, quid est veritas? For instance, our values are not universal. They depend on us being submerged in particular history, particular place and time and priorities. For instance, there is no vaccines for genocide or for the wish to usurp power from the powers that be. From the Nietzschean, the ghost of nihilism is hanging over a society, because truth be told, the truth as an absolute is not attainable to us. If we know this, we can seek truth in a more humble way, as something imperfect, incomplete, as a truth in process, working truth, as something that we can believe in and something that we can agree with and rely on in these conditions and in these horizons. Intuitively, we know that we can't deal without it, that it is the guarantee of our survival. And our new job then will be not to disregard this, not to be dismissive of this imperfection, but to be grateful for it. Here are we, imperfect us, and here are the imperfect objects of faith that we have managed to agree on. If we look to the slogan of "we do what we can as best we can," there are many improvements we can achieve. That is what the formula basically of a well-lived life basically looks like in most religions. In his Ethics of the Future, Hans Jonas, in the 1980s, wrote of the principle of responsibility. People must act in such a way that their actions are commensurate with the continuation of human life on Earth, and then do such that the consequences of our actions are not destructive to the possibility of life on the planet itself. Otherwise, everything will fall apart into little bits. Durkheim wrote in the early 20th century about two types of solidarity in social interactions. He spoke about mechanical solidarity and organic solidarity. Mechanical solidarity between people in a group arises when they already share common views, origin, identity markers, when they have common experiences and they have similar values and beliefs, perhaps supported by virtues. However, this ideal, we rarely reach that ideal situation. In human relations, there's also the possibility of other solidarity, and it won't be Gemeinschaft or Gesellschaft. It's when people have different views, different diverging experiences and values, but they feel their own interdependence. They feel their interdependence. They're open to dialogue, and they count on mutual help. We're all in the same boat. We can only save ourselves together. This faith, this mutual faith, mutual belief, mutual trust, are relations between humans. You can't make someone trust you. There's positive expectation and trust. Those who trust and those who are being trusted believe that something good will emerge out of their decision to trust. Trust supported tells us that we're moving in the right direction. It builds long-term relationships, reputation, and a Ukrainian proverb says, "Untruth will take you all over the world, but it won't take you back." So, and this is why trust is as necessary as oxygen, because great feats, great achievements demand that we go around the world several times and do come back to perform what we have promised. For instance, Bożena is performing what she has promised, that we would all meet in Gem Factory. The categorical imperative of Kant was addressed to a separate person, to an individual person, and dependent on their individual choice and will. It has nothing to do with the consequences of human action. The new imperative by Jonas is looking at consequences, at the impact of the future. It's not addressed to an individual, to an autonomous individual, but to the community. It relies on our common responsibility. It is dependent on our common responsibility. The need for the transcendent returns. For millennia, people have dealt with three objects of faith: creation, revelation, salvation. Theologians, philosophers, students of culture have thought about this for a long time. Maybe you will be thinking about it too. Modern ecological activists, eco-activists, see this too. They see human treatment of the planet not just as a violation of symbiosis and exploitation of the planet, but as a sin against creation. And their vision of salvation is in the fact that people must reject ownership of nature and come back to the concept of wise stewardship. Stewardship of the future means that the adventure of being is worth preserving it as a chance for future generations. It's worth preserving as a chance for future generation. Unfortunately, in the recent years, this problem of transcendent has taken on the notes of utopia, of immortality through technology. The fantasy is that we'll be able to upload people into the cloud, and we can remain in a technological paradise. We will be surrounded by nanorobots that will help us switch from one delight to another endlessly. These technologies we're giving these technologies and this illusion of immortality through the constant surveillance and supporting the fantasy of a world with remote control. So the new question arises, or perhaps not so new, of the value of the preservation of the human face. Is this modified, completely completely willless, soulless social creation? Is that person still human? Is that creation still human? We need not only oxygen but also culture, the atmosphere of our senses, spontaneity, uncertainty, without which our communication, development, and interaction are no longer possible. This conditioning is not only necessary for our bodies but also for our souls. We cannot survive cosmically, but we cannot survive in the cosmic draft, but we need air, and we need broadening our horizons through the creation and the change of laws and rituals and arts is how we become human. Creation and transformation help us support the union of generations, improving the formula of humanity and resisting utopia. Those who don't think it's who think it's impossible, let they not stop those who think it's possible and are doing something to achieve that end. Thank you.